Hello, welcome to the Basketball Soapbox. I am your host, Daniel Daly. Welcome to this edition of Quick Hits, where I'm going to be going over the Phoenix Suns. Going into the season, the Phoenix Suns, I had questions about them just because of the way last season ended in Game 7 of the Western Conference semifinals against the Dallas Mavericks, and just seeing how that team with DeAndre Ayton, the speculation over Kevin Durant, if that was a trade that was going to be happening, um, looking at the age of CP3 getting up there. And one of the two things that I had concerns about was DeAndre Ayton's productivity going into the next season, especially with Monty Williams and that whole situation, and especially Chris Paul. The first thing I was saying, they can't depend on CP3 to carry this team, Chris Paul to carry this team. Chris Paul is one of my favorite point guards of all time, probably my favorite point guard of all time, one of my favorite NBA players of all time. Since New Orleans days, just how quick he was, how fast he was, and to see this Phoenix team depend on him in such a heavy load last year, to create every shot, to create every dribble that wasn't Devin Booker's, to basically create every mid-range shot. Clutch numbers were great, awesome. And then you can just see over the course of the playoffs him just wear down, and you're just like, they can't do that again. If the copy and print was to win 64 games and then have Chris Paul burn out in the playoffs, I'm pretty sure they would have gave up a couple more games to preserve him and extend his playoff career, his playoff life last year. But looking at Chris Paul, what he brings to the table at this age, we've already seen this season. Despite them already being 8-4, being in a good spot, one of the top defensive teams in the league, middle of the road offensively. But what we're looking at is Chris Paul's just his productivity. I think he's averaging 9.5 points or something like that, but he's had nearly 10 assists a game, and that's where you want Chris Paul right now. Maybe not point wise, maybe not efficiency wise, what he's shooting poorly this year, but you definitely want him to still be the floor general, still be a leader on defense, still be in that the mix of things on that end. But most importantly, setting up everything at the end of the table for Devin Booker, DeAndre, and Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. I'll get into those guys later, but looking at what Chris Paul can still do at his age, he can still play defense. He can still play make at a high level, still create for everybody. He's probably still the best creator at the end of games, probably in this era of the league, as a pure point guard, as a guy that gets that stuff done. Um, in Phoenix, I was very eager to see if they were going to play and deliberately rely on Chris Paul, and maybe that's because of age and attrition and him slowing down a bit and him not being right to start the season. That these other guys are picking it up, starting with Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. Devin Booker is basically just going off what he did last season. He had 26 points per game last season. Now he's at 27 points per game this season. Really taking that role, four rebounds, 5.5 assists on 48, 40, and 86 splits from the field. Looking at his game and how he's just continuing to be that lead guy, saying, hey, I'm number one. I'm going to be that guy. We're going to play through any adversity, guys' injuries, being down, whatever the case may be. He's really stepping up and being a number one for this team, and arguably being one of the best shooting guards, if not the best shooting guard in the league. To see his productivity continue at this way, to be efficient, to basically have that early win against Dallas early in the season and see him step up, um, see the Suns step up overall, is very impressive. And Devin Booker is going to be continuing that. He's already the leader of this team. He's going to be the captain of this team, and really lead them offensively. DeAndre Ayton, I'm a little disappointed in because I was like, the first thing they need to do, I still don't like how they're using him as yet, but he has to be aggressive on that end. Chris Paul has to get him aggressive, get him easier shots, get him going like he gets the other guys going. But um, DeAndre Ayton, I thought there would have been a little bit more. I thought he would have been at least the 18 and 10 guy. And I want him to be more dominant. He's only averaging 15 points to 8 rebounds. And it's like this guy could be dominant on the rebounds. He has averaged 11 rebounds in the league. He has averaged 18 points. It's like those should be where your averages are. And maybe it's just shared the way they share the ball there in Phoenix, with Chris Paul distributing to other guys and everyone getting everybody involved. I still want to see DeAndre Ayton take a bigger impact on the boards, be more physical presence inside on both ends, protecting the rim, being a big body at the rim, finishing at the rim, being a dunker, being a lob threat, being more aggressive offensively in the post. get his touches, that's going to open up the game for you. Hopefully, they're working on that, and I want them to work on that because I think DeAndre Ayton has been given a bad rap. He's been in that draft class with Luka Doncic, and yeah, people are not going to forget that. So I really want him to step up and do good. Um, really, 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 really start playing physical, start finishing, start being the big man that Phoenix needs you to be because Devin Booker and him should be this team's 1-2 combo punch, and it seems like DeAndre Ayton's just kind of fading away a little bit into the background. We don't want to see that. You don't want to see that if you're a Phoenix fan. But moving on to the pleasant surprises of this season have been Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. Mikal Bridges has increased his scoring every year, 16.4 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, and 3 assists on 59, 46, and 88 splits. He's usually solid from the field, but I believe his 3-point percentages went up 10 points. So to see that jump in his productivity, to see him get into the basket, to see him getting open shots is very promising for the Phoenix Suns, especially this guy who has been a workhorse defensively the past couple of years and really now stepping it up offensively and being efficient. That's something that you definitely want out of Mikal Bridges, out of these young guys. And moving on to Cam Johnson, unfortunately, I think he tore his meniscus and he's out for 1 to 2 months, which is really, really, really unfortunate because DeAndre Ayton missed a little bit of time with a sprained ankle. I think Chris Paul has a bruised heel or something like that. So you're hoping this team that has battled injuries in the past and that will probably battle injuries this season, you're hoping that they can stay on track. Devin Booker can lead this team. But getting back to Cam Johnson, they really wanted to start him because they needed to shoot more threes as a team. He's only shooting nearly, I think he's shooting around 6 threes a game and knocking it at a 43% clip. So that's a really good percentage. The Suns really needed to pick it up on that end in terms of shooting the ball and really not relying so much on mid-range twos and finishes. They need to add the 3 to their game. And that's why they started Cam Johnson, because it's like we need to be able to spread the floor. That helps everyone involved. But having a guy be able to knock down the 3-point shot at 40% plus, that's something definitely a big dividend for this team, especially he's a bigger guy than the aforementioned Jay Crowder, who has been sitting out this year because he didn't like his role in being on the trading block and et cetera, et cetera. They can actually use him right now with Cam Johnson being out and them still trying to find a 3-and-D guy on the perimeter. At the forward spot, whatever the case may be. But yeah, you're definitely sad to see Cam Johnson go down after having such a promising start, playing real well in the starting line next to these guys. But yeah, with the two things that I want to see is DeAndre Ayton getting more physical, more aggressive, being a more presence down low, and seeing what are they going to do to replace Jay Crowder or bring him back. What can they do in those instances? I don't know too many trades up there. I heard Atlanta, I heard Miami, I believe. Jay Crowder's a solid 3-and-D guy in the league. He could be productive for the Suns team, but choosing not to, he can been a very big help. Even though the bench has been playing okay for Phoenix, Torrey Craig and Jock Lydon, I believe his name is the guy, the center there that can shoot threes and spread the floor there. He's playing real nice to enter the season. Damian Lee, Torrey Craig, all these guys that are aforementioned, guys that you don't really think about being bench guys or you think of them being end of the rotation guys. They're given their minutes and being productive in their time given. But the Suns team, I'm just like, you guys need a backup point guard because Cameron Payne, who else is on the backcourt there? Damian Lee. That's really tough to continue to have a second unit with that backcourt there and see how that plays out. And just get another productive score off the bench. If that's Jay Crowder, who can be that. Try to figure out ways to add to this team because this team is, I think they get a bad rap because of how things ended in Dallas. But overall, they still have Chris Paul. They still have Devin Booker. They still have DeAndre Ayton. They have Mikal Bridges. They have Cam Johnson. So there's something there. You have a front line unit, a front starting 5 unit that can battle anybody in the league on any given night. And to not have the depth, to not have the resources potentially lurking, whatever the case may be, is very alarming. They should have addressed this a little bit more, I feel like, but with the whole scandal and all that stuff going on with Robert Sarver, that's probably not the easiest thing to do. When the owner is potentially pinching pockets and stuff like that and wanting to change things up. So it's very interesting to see how the Suns go from here they're able to stay afloat because they're so well connected and play solid basketball. But at the end of the day, you're worried about injuries with this team because if DeAndre Ayton goes down for any extended time, yes, you have Bismack Biyombo who can fit in there, Jock Lydon who's been able to step up a little bit there, but you're not going to replace that. You're not going to replace DeAndre Ayton because he does so many things well. If Devin Booker goes down, can you replicate that with Landry Shamet? Maybe Mikal Bridges move him up, whatever the case may be. I don't think they can. So the Suns have to definitely address that at some point, find a bench, hopefully improve their bench and really pay dividends for them as they head into nearly the quarter mark of the season. So it's going to be interesting to see when Cam Johnson comes back, hopefully by late December, January. It depends on the individual, but hopefully the Suns can find a way to continue their gravy train because I really feel like they really reopened the window with Cam Johnson starting. Not relying so much on CP3, getting all these other guys involved, and really taking advantage of these guys, the young guys, and really getting them going and having them be have their production up. I think that's a very good thing for Chris Paul there and the Suns. It's just what are they going to do to address their bench situation? That's the only concern I have. But they are in for it is early in the season, and we'll see what they'll be able to do.